Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit.
Hey, Diane. Good to see you.
Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
You should come on.
I thought I'd do Trump again. We haven't seen this one, but I thought I'd do Trump because he looks like he's going to get back into power. So we got to know what we're dealing with, Di, don't we? Hey, Phil. Good to see you, mate.
Good morning, Swarm, and welcome to Tinfoil Hat. You know I'm here to do. I'm here to. Wrong. Okay, that was horrible. Join me as always, Xavier Guerrero, and not here, Johnny Woodard. He's not here, everybody. Don't pay attention. He's not here. Guys, real quick, go to samtripoli.com. I have tons of events coming up, tons of dates. Next week, the 10th, 10/10, I'm at the Comedy Store with a murder lineup. We just added Trevor Wallace to Russell Peters, Tony Rock, Amir K, Brandon Schaub, Josh Wolf, Jessime Peluso, murderers. Then I'm in Morris Plains on the 13th, actually the 12th, the 13th, and 14th. Then I'm in Thousand Oaks on the 19th. And then I just added on the 11th, November 3rd and November 4th, I'll be in Indianapolis and St. Louis, plus on November 10th, Bellflower, California. Go grab those tickets now. Support me, support you, supporting me. And go to samtripoli.com for all your needs. And that's about it. Very excited to have her on. She's a very, very thorough researcher, an amazing artist. Please welcome back to the show, Susan Harrell. How are you, Susan?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
So, Susan, for those who may not be familiar with your last appearance on the show, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Sure. My name is Susan Harrell. I am a visual artist living in Central North Carolina. I have been a photorealistic oil painter since around my early 20s. Photorealism is a genre of art where the artist studies a photograph and then attempts to reproduce it in another medium. This photorealism requires the ability to pay close attention to fine details, details that might otherwise go unnoticed. My experience in the arts has cultivated this appreciation for subtle details and symbolism, which I believe has likely contributed to my understanding of conspiracy that we find ourselves in. The arts has also drawn my attention to architecture and some famous public art with highly esoteric qualities. A sculpture that fits this genre would be Prometheus, which stands outside of Rockefeller Center. Hundreds of people skate around in front of Prometheus every year, unknowing to what that actually symbolizes. So if people had a better understanding of Greek mythology and symbolism, I think that they would have a better understanding of the world around them in general.
Is she talking about that ice rink Trump built in New York because no one else could build it properly? Is she talking about that ice rink?
I love this because I think you're spot on everything you say. Real quick, do you have a website? Do you have Instagram? And then I'll make a comment on that real quick. Do you have any of those?
Right now, I'm just on Instagram, and I go by Susie Hughes, FUZIECUES_. And I am just getting ready to launch a Patreon, which will go by the same. I don't have a website or anything like that. I'm just a painter who has stumbled across this bizarre conspiracy.
There is a website with your art, though.
Oh, yes, SusanHarrell.com, and it's HARRELL.com.
Okay, we want to make sure everyone can appreciate your work. So all those links are below. We will make sure to include them in the description. So I love what you're saying. I'm into everything that you're saying. I don't think so. Some people think everything's getting worse. I just think it's getting more obvious. That's a meme I saw.
Yes.
I don't know who came up with that meme, but that encapsulates exactly how I feel. That we are living in a time of great illumination. That everything is coming to the forefront, and they're freaking out. And for whatever reason, there's rules to the universe, and part of the rules is they have to tell us what they're doing so they don't get karma blowback. That's their rules. And, regardless of what you think of Q, and I'm fine with it, you hate it, because I think it might have been Operation Trust, but the whole point of Operation Trust was that it had to give you real truth. They had to tell you the truth in order to capture a very paranoid segment of society. So, their symbolism is their downfall. That was from Q, and I do believe that to be true, and more stuff is coming out. And again, we do a lot of episodes on it, but I do believe that this is all God versus fallen angels. It's seen across all these different disciplines. We talk about it all the time. And that's why I think this is where we are right now. And I think people are starting to realize they have to start picking sides before it gets too late. So where do you want to start, Susan?
Yes, well, first of all, I agree very much with what you just said. I think that people just now becoming aware of what's going on, but all of this is going on all the time. People are just kind of learning, and I think purposefully. I think the conspiracy is being revealed purposefully. With my work, I cover a lot of really strange numerology, which kind of demonstrates that the elite are indeed practicing an ancient cult religion, which revolves around a lot of astrology. So one that I recently discovered was Donald Trump announced that he was running for president 666 days after his last full day as president. And this was also 666 days before 9/11, 2024. So that's that's kind of what a coincidence. And then hours after he made this announcement, NASA announced that they were going to the moon on the rocket named Artemis. Now, Artemis is the twin of Apollo. And what's interesting about that is Donald Trump has a large mural of Apollo in his penthouse.
I knew that.
He has a 66 floor penthouse at Trump Tower. But Trump Tower doesn't have 66 floors. So to me, that kind of indicates his interest in numerology right there.
I think it's interesting. I think this is all very interesting. I think astrology, they always say millionaires study the market, billionaires study the stars. We've said that before.
Wow, that's pretty deep.
That is it. I think there is a religion.
Wow, that's a good pickup. Millionaires study the market, billionaires study the astrology. Wow.
Whatever it may be of the elites, there is astrology in the Bible. We've had guests come on and talk about that, numerology and all that stuff. I think if people dismiss that as dark arts and stuff like that, I think you're missing on. And even if you think it's dark arts, that's fine, but just know that that's what they believe. And you have to study what they believe to understand what they're doing.
Right. Well, I think it's very important to distinguish the practice of worshiping astrology and being aware of astronomy, which is two very, very different things. So the Bible is basically more in the lines of astronomy, being aware of the stars, and astrology is more the practice of what the elite get into, which is they believe they're harnessing the power of the stars and worshiping the stars as entities. So that's two very, very different ways to view the planets and stars. And another thing to note about this number of 666 is people don't understand that there's this is an ancient number, a significant number related to Kabbalah. It's kind of become a mockery in modern times because they use it kind of carelessly in music videos and this kind of thing. But it relates back to King Solomon's temple. So King Solomon received 666
Hey, Barry, good to see you,
talents
mate.
per year. So I believe this is why 666 is a significant number to Freemasonry. You might recall that George Washington's obelisk, whenever I first started digging into this kind of stuff, the measurements for George Washington's obelisk, which is Osiris symbolism, was 6,666 inches tall by 666 inches wide. So they kind of always.
I missed that then because I was writing Yari. Or Nary, not Barry.
Significant number to Freemasonry. You might recall that George Washington's obelisk, whenever I first started digging
post the link, Barry.
Stuff,
I don't know it.
The measurements for George Washington's obelisk, which is Osiris symbolism, was 6,666 inches tall by 666 inches wide. So they kind of always cryptically encode this Masonic numerology into a lot of things. The Kaaba in Mecca,
Yes.
which I believe is just Saturn symbolism.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they even march around. It's a black cube. So
it is the black cube.
Which is
100%.
Right, it is the black cube. Right. And the black cube comes from, there's a hexagon-shaped storm on the North Pole of Saturn. And a hexagon is a two-dimensional cube. So, in Freemasonry, you'll see the Seal of Solomon very often, which is what we know of, which most people recognize as the Star of David. Well, there is no actual Star of David. It's this is a esoteric symbol used in witchcraft, and it's up triangle merged with a down triangle, and the shape that's created in the center is the hexagon or a cube.
Yeah.
So in Freemasonry and Kabbalah, you guys know this. Like their whole religion is based on Baphomet. So just about every single symbol in Freemasonry is actually referring to Baphomet. So, Masonry has the twin pillars. The pillars represent male and female. The Star of David or the Seal of Solomon is two triangles. One, the male is the up triangle, and then the down triangle is the.
Barry, it goes for 20 minutes. I'll check it out when I hang up.
Sorry, I had that backwards. But the up triangle is female, the down triangle is male. And whenever you merge them, you create perfect balance, which creates God. And in their religion, balancing male and female is how you create God. So God is the cube created in the center. So the Kaaba in Mecca, I believe, is just symbolic of this, Saturn symbolism. And if you take on a laptop from Google Earth, drop a pin on the center of the cube and measure to the dome of the rock, which is where Solomon's temple supposedly was. It's exactly 6,666.66 nautical miles.
Whoa.
What?
That can't
Like,
be a coincidence.
exactly.
That can't be a coincidence. Like when you go point like decimals, that's just like.
No, there's no way that's a coincidence. And to make things even more interesting, Donald Trump, he's kind of surrounded by Kabbalists. Like his daughter wears the Kabbalah red string, and they attend Chabad. They're clearly practicing Kabbalah. Donald Trump's greatest influence was a man named Norman Vincent Peale, who was a Scottish Rite Knights Templar. And he was supposedly a pastor. Well, these are two very, very conflicting ideologies. And the Knights Templar go all the way back to these temples, Solomon's Temple. And the interesting thing about Solomon's Temple is that the most significant Jewish holiday is a holiday called Tish B'Av. And Tish B'Av is the day that both the first and second temple were destroyed.
Okay.
Tish B'Av translates to 9/11.
Wow.
So
So
explain that to me again. What was
all right. Okay, so Freemasonry is all about rebuilding Solomon's Temple. That's like, to sum it up. In every single Masonic lodge, you'll find the twin pillars of Solomon's Temple represent Joachim and Boaz. Esoterically, represent male and female. So, their whole religion is Baphomet. Baphomet is a symbol of the Knights Templar. And interesting about the word Baphomet is historically, it's believed that Baphomet is another name for Muhammad.
Oh.
So.
Oh my God.
So whenever we start
that.
Barry, I'll have to watch it. I don't understand what you're saying.
Just reading about the Templars. Yeah, it's an ancient name for Muhammad. So personally, I believe that Islam was created as a adversarial religion to pit against the Christian West, to create that conflict.
Yeah, me too.
Well, there is a discussion that Mohammed is related to Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, well, that would make sense.
She actually bragged about that. That she
really?
Yeah, she said she is related to the Prophet Muhammad, which is very interesting. Now, again, I'm always like live and let live. That's not my necessarily telling people how to live their life or anything like that. But there is some interesting weird relationships to the British royals, who aren't really British royals. They're more of German descent, which is just layer upon layer upon layer of just the inversion that we go through, which is kind of crazy.
Right. And this is where understanding symbolism is so important, because if you notice, the royal family, all of their symbols are identical to the Masonic symbols. And the queen wears a Templar right on her crown. And to go back to what we were talking about before, because this I feel like is really, really important when we're talking about the Knights Templar, who are the protectors of Solomon's Temple. And Solomon's Temple was destroyed on Tish B'Av. They say that it was destroyed, the first temple and the second temple on the same day.
Wow.
And Tish is the 9th day and Av is 11. So it translates to 9/11. And, fast forward to our events, the Twin Towers, if you look at the footprint of the Twin Towers of Ground Zero, it's building number 7 was actually technically called the Solomon Brothers building. And then out in front of the Solomon building number 7, you have these 2 twin pillars represent.
No way! Building 7. Wow.
Holy
male,
shit.
female, Joaquin Boaz.
Oh, God. This is nuts.
And they started construction for the Twin Towers in 1968, and they fell 33 years later. So the
Wow.
highest degree in Freemasonry is 33 degrees. And it's all, you know, Masonry is all Luciferianism.
You're so right. Building 7 World Center, exclusively renovated to accommodate Salmon Brothers. Holy cow. Salmon
Right. And
Brothers
then
building World Trade Center 7. Holy cow.
And then, you know, what I find really, really interesting is that the man who constructed, the architect who built the Twin Towers, see, I believe they make up their birth and death dates to fit. I believe they truly believe in the power of
Numbers. Yeah.
numbers, right? Because the world was intelligently designed to do that, and they believe if they harness that, then they can, you know, manifest the world that they would like to create. And they perform these rituals over us in this way. So the guy who designed the Twin Towers would have turned 88 years, 9 months, and 11 days on 9/11. The man who owns the Twin Towers, Larry Silverstein, turned 88 years, 9 months, and 11 days the day that the WHO declared Corona a global pandemic. So to sum up what my presentation is to kind of show evidence that 9/11 and Corona and the new king, the coronation of King Charles is all one long Cabalistic ritual that's tied together.
Oh, tell me about it. Guys, real quick, I want to tell you about our good friend.
Yeah, she's
James
good.
McMahon and Copy My Crypto. Let me tell you about Copy My.
I jumped ahead and looked at this, Diane, and I didn't see any pictures of Trump doing his 666 stuff. So I thought it might be interesting if they're just going to talk. But man, she's delivering, isn't she? I never knew this.
Crypto. Listen, everybody, we've seen so many people making ridiculous money in crypto, but did you know it's easy for you to do the same? The Copy My Crypto membership site shows you the
Okay, not interested in crypto dollars. Thank you.
There are 22 paths. And the top Sephiroth,
Yeah.
do you know what the Sephiroths are?
No.
Okay.
What? No.
So there's Sephiroths, there's 10 Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, and these are like points of illumination. And as you work your way through this tree, the very top one on the Tree of Life is called Keter, which means crown. Okay, so I believe that the royal family is actually just symbolic of this Tree of Life. This year, King Charles was crowned, which was 22 years after 9/11. The global pandemic officially ended on the eve of his coronation.
Wow.
And there was a full moon.
Crazy. That's so crazy.
Right. And then you get into the naming of coronavirus. The scientists that named the coronavirus named it in 1968. That's the year they started construction on the Twin Towers. The same year.
Wow.
And it's also a year that, you know, I believe this is all about human DNA, because I believe rebuilding Solomon's temple to a Mason is not.
Diane, I hope they give the link to her channel, because she sounds like she's worth subscribing to, doesn't she?
That's the physical structure. I believe that they believe they are rebuilding Solomon's temple, which is man, because the Bible tells us that we are the temple of God. That's why in Christianity, you don't really support the building of a temple, a physical temple because they're going to carry out sacrifices at this temple. And that's not in Christian ideology.
No, you're totally right.
That's what Christ came to do, was to be the final atonement sacrifice. So there's no more need for sacrifice.
And then we get into, if you believe in the Great Flood and there's scientific evidence of a Great Flood, okay, and there's talk of, see, this is my whole problem I have with so many different people that, are atheists and all this stuff, and when they tend to cite, the reasons they don't believe in God. And
I'm trying to get rid of the glare, guys.
It's always Christian, dogma, Christian, the Bible, all this stuff. But what they don't realize is, like, the stories that they have problems with are basically told through many different philosophies and disciplines. So if you want to talk about the fallen angels and all that stuff, that's across many different, even Native American philosophies talk about fallen angels. And the flood is scientifically proven to have happened, okay? So we know that happened, some great event happened, destroyed everybody, whatever they want to call it, something driest or whatever it's called, youngest, driest or whatever.
Right.
They love to come up with scientific explanations for things that are in the Bible, like, it's not the firmament, it's, the Van Allen belt, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what they like to do. So,
Right.
so they'll be like, oh, God didn't flood, asteroids hit the planet and Fugazi'd everything, right? That's what they want to do. But if we want to get into a biblical look at the floods, why did God flood the planet? Well, because the fallen angels had come down, mated with the daughters of men, and started creating Nephilims. And these Nephilims, they mated with the more daughters of men and destroyed the DNA, God's sacred DNA. So then you get into, like, what is going on. And it's an argument I had with my friend Brian Callen about mRNA and what that's doing, which is gene splicing, okay, which is gene editing, which is DNA editing. So, like, here we are again with these fallen angel worshiper.
Guys, when I was looking for up the stream today, I looked this up, and about 30 minutes of it had gone past. So I think we got to about 30 minutes of it. Then something else must have happened, and I switched videos. So, yeah, that's what you're remembering, I think.
These watcher worshippers trying once again to destroy God's DNA. I mean, you guys can sit there and fight it all you want, but it's like you just keep looking for scientific explanation to biblical events, and that's where they are.
So would you be saying that there might be a new flood coming? Like, in a way?
100%. And then I forget the name of these people, but they're called, like, the Jonas or the Jophers or the Sons of Jafar or something like that. I saw, and somebody sent to me. Hold on. Let me find my buddy JP. He sent me this. Let me find JP. Okay, here we go. Let me find this real quick. The prodigy of John,
Susan Harrell,
Jove. They talk about the next great flood.
I gotta look her up.
And
Susan Harrell.
Go ahead.
And by the way, California and Arizona, bye-bye. California, Nevada, bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'm trying to figure out the land place so I can move the kids to there. But it's like it's in the Midwest. It's the best. You got to go there. Everything else is gonna get flooded out.
I mean, you know what else I've been hearing about? The 7 trumpets. A lot of people have been hearing these noises that make random noises in the middle of nowhere. And if the 7 trumpets come by, you get to hear them. That is a prophecy, something the apocalypse is coming. So there's a possibility. You've heard of the trumpets, right? You've never heard of people just hearing these random noises in the middle of nowhere? They can't. It sounds like it's coming from here. It's coming from.
Di, she hasn't posted something for 6 years, it says. I just tried to look it up.
No, we're wearing it's just these noises, and they're saying it's the seven sounds of the trumpet that is said to be said in the prophecy.
You know, Tino Sanchez from Tinfoil Hat, he talks about how all of this is biblical. That's all in the end of days in the Bible.
Okay, cool, Di. Hang on.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But I also feel like there's another level of manipulation that's going on here, because Masonry plays off the dark adversary. There's light and dark Masonry. So, I mean, everybody's heard the phrase, two wings, one bird, which is, the symbol of the Scottish Rite is the two-headed bird.
Thanks, Diane. I just subbed.
I personally believe that Biden is playing this dark adversarial role that is scaring everyone and doing a really good job of it, to the light side of Masonry. And I believe Donald Trump is their chosen quote unquote savior figure. So I believe that Christians are being manipulated to believe that the end of the world is here, and they're kind of primed for a savior figure. And I believe the system is going to try to offer them that savior figure, most likely coming in political form. But this is all part of the very grand deception that's been brewing for hundreds of years, and is just kind of coming to a climax now. And we're living through it. And
we're living through it. It's so crazy.
It's so incredible. Like people, I know a lot of people, some who follow my work, they feel very depressed and overwhelmed. And, the more
Hi, Dahlia. Good to see you.
This is, everything is just so unbelievably psychotic. And then you learn that the elite are truly practicing Satanism. And that's a hard thing to process and live with. To go day to day in your normal world like everything's normal, whenever you know that it's not.
You're totally right.
But in my mind, I feel like I'm in an adventure. It's exciting to me because we have so much material to work with. Never before have we been able to piece together this amount of information and expose what's been going on this whole time. So I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not excited about it at all.
I think there's a lot that is going down, and I personally believe that these elites, they worship the ruler of this realm, which is Satan. That's in the Bible. Satan rules this realm. They worship those people that they've been trapped here. Again, that is across multiple disciplines. Vedic astrology, Hinduism, all talk about the one God trapping entities in this realm. Okay? And they worship these fallen angels. And that's why you have so many atheists going, well, if God is love, why does he let this happen to this person and this person and this person? And I get the pain, but it's just super crazy. But God created this realm for consequences.
Yep.
Right. That's his idea. And it's out of my powers to truly try to understand that. And that sounds like maybe defeatism, but I just think there's a bigger plan here. So people need to understand that. So then you start getting into this depression where all this darkness and all this is going on. And I've always said this forever. It will be dark before there is light. It is always dark before there is light. That's just life. And that this because nobody is bigger than the rules of the universe except for God. And God created these rules and and the rule is love. Okay. And those who give love receive love, and those who put out pain receive pain. And it's all coming to a head right now. And that's what I truly do believe. That we're going to go through this craziness and then we're going to get to an amazing place. That's what I hope. We'll see if I'm wrong, or it could be the great ending, and then those who
that's how I see it too. We're going to go for a bit of darkness
after that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
And then the light.
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree, and I'm also really interested in the theory that we are living in the little season. I don't know if you're aware of that phrase, but in the Bible, it speaks of a time where Satan is released from the bottomless pit and is allowed to rule over the earth for one last time before God comes and banishes him forever. And I believe that's the time that we are in, but it's very controversial because it also requires the belief that Jesus Christ has already returned long ago, which people who follow this train of thought would say that Jesus' return came in the millennial reign, which would have been what they call the Dark Ages. So, it's interesting to me that all of this incredible architecture and you see these cathedrals that are just mind-boggling, and a lot of this stuff came out of the Dark Ages. Well, wouldn't it be just perfect for them to invert the time that Jesus was actually on Earth and call it the Dark Ages as a way to manipulate where people believe we are in biblical prophecy. It really
interesting.
Yeah, it explains a lot to me, because whenever you truly understand what's going on here with the elite, it's so clearly demonically inspired. You can't sum up what Jeff Bezos and Gates are doing by just greed. There's something more to it.
I totally agree with
that. Drives them.
So what year do you think it really is?
I think we're like 1,000 years off.
1,000 years? Is it?
Barry, is that what you were saying before with that link you gave? Because I tried to make that point. That's what I thought you were saying, what these guys are saying.
3,023, or is it 1023?
Yeah, backwards.
I've heard that before. They've added 1,000 years. That's really 1023.
Yes, yeah. But this is all just things to contemplate.
Do you think they made that? Do you think they made the eras longer in general, or you think they just added years? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Okay, the good question is, what would be the motive for doing that? What's the motive for doing that?
They made like the medieval times a little longer, or
do you think they're speeding up time?
Yeah,
because everyone thinks everybody. It's so funny when you look at pictures from the past, like a 22-year-old from the 1800s looks like it could be the parent of a 22-year-old.
I thought so, Barry.
But I'm wondering if the days and times are different, that they're not actually the same 22-year-old. That maybe they sped up time, and that the 22-year-old today is really an 8-year-old from way back in the day.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
10-year-old or 12-year-old or 15-year-old, something.
Yeah, I think most people believe that time is moving faster. It feels that way to most people, but we're also much more aware.
Okay, I think that idea comes from the Old Testament, where Noah and that lived for like 700 years. So you get a girl when she's 11 years old in Noah's years. Is she hitting puberty, or doesn't she hit puberty till she's like 92 or something? I wonder how that works.
What I need is all the time, because we have these smartphone devices and we're, just looking at the clock a lot more than we were doing 100 years ago. So that could contribute to us feeling like time's moving faster. Our days are just so.
Barry, the pyramids have helicopters, planes, and submarine jets on them, the hieroglyphs, the pyramids. So they could fly before the flood.
Busy, that might make things feel like time's moving faster, or time might actually be moving faster. I don't know.
Johnny thinks time's moving faster, that they're stealing time.
Well, maybe.
Johnny's got AIDS, so he can't talk right now. Yeah, Johnny's got full-blown AIDS, so he can't talk right now. But he thinks they're stealing time, and that's why everybody's seeing the days seem to be flying quicker and quicker and quicker.
All right. Well, Saturn is known as the god of time, and that's their god. So
yeah, Time Magazine, all that stuff. And it's so funny because we haven't done a good Saturn show in a long time, but it's like all people just have no clue what is going on. Like when everyone is everything a conspiracy, 100% everything is a conspiracy. It just seems overwhelming at first. Nobody's asking you to understand all of it at one time. Just start really simple. It's like they say this with jujitsu, right? Like jujitsu seems like Chinese when you show up, but as you start to slowly do it over time, you start to understand the moves and why everybody does what they do. So it's like that's conspiracy. Start with a simple thing like JFK. Now there's layers of JFK, but just get to the point where you go, oh, it's not Lee Harvey Oswald. It was most likely the U.S. government with a couple other countries, either assassinating the president or giving the perception of assassination to cause mass trauma on a global level.
Right. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, 9/11 is that little event that lets them know that something that we're not being told the accurate story of what's going on here, building number 7 specifically.
That's Solomon's brothers.
Solomon's Temple.
Blew my mind. Just blew my mind. And then you go, there's layers upon layers upon layers to 9/11, right? Like they had, like when you look at the JFK assassination, regardless of whatever's happening there, okay, they had to make sure that got pulled off. And whatever, whether it's JFK faking his assassination or the powers that be assassinating him and the Rothschild, I think her name is Elizabeth or whatever Rothschild, who is the babushka lady, is sitting right there watching the whole thing, surrounded by CIA agents. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to me. Okay, absolutely incredible. But 9/11 is a great example of that as well. Like the layers upon layers upon layers that they made sure that thing there was nothing left standing, which is right. Operation Northwood. They probably flew drones into those buildings. They laid down the foundation of terrorists hanging out with strippers, doing coke, making bad decisions, and deciding to fly planes that they weren't actually capable of flying, which becomes nonlinear warfare, right? So now everyone's arguing about whether the terrorists could actually fly those planes. That begins to divide us. Then they fly the drones into the plane perfectly. Now we get into holograms. This is a hologram. Then you have the dancing Israelis who had chances to fill up the elevators. They were supposed to be there to fix the elevators for 4 years. For 4 years. That's a lot of time to line that thing up with fucking explosives, okay? So they line that up with explosives. So then they explode that shit. And then guess what? Now they're hitting it with fucking frequencies from weather to evaporate the motherfucker. So that's, I mean, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and just 9/11 is such an interesting number related to the occult and masonry. I don't know if you know, but the first victim of 9/11 was a Israeli who was an ex-IDF member who was sitting in seat 9, flight 11, and the pilot that was supposedly the terrorist.
Did you just say? What did you say?
It gets way better than that. Okay, so all right, so it all breaks down to astrology, and we can get into that further. But Putin invaded the Ukraine 9 months and 11 days after Israel's founding date. Okay.
Okay.
In the year 2021. The first official victim of 9/11 was an Israeli sitting in seat 9, flight 11. He was supposedly born on Israel's founding date, May 14. On the day that Putin invaded Ukraine, a never before seen footage of 9/11 went viral on YouTube. Did you guys see that?
No, what was it?
There was never before seen footage of 9/11 that went viral on YouTube and made national headlines. The
What did it
day
show?
that Putin invaded the Ukraine.
What did it show?
And it's had like over 6 million views now. And it was a footage of the second plane hitting the tower. So the man who was the first official victim of 9/11, his name is Daniel Lewin, and he was supposedly killed by a terrorist named Satan. Satan. Sounds a lot like Satan.
Oh,
You know,
are you
the great adversary in Kabbalah. And then
Satan. Instead of Satan, Satan with an M, as in Muslim. Satan.
on top of that, do you remember the miracle passport that was found?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It belonged to Satan.
Wow.
The terrorist who killed the first official victim of 9/11.
Oh my God. What?
I mean, what a tall tale that is. You know,
Oh my, I have to look this up. Passport.
and it's in like pristine condition. So the plane explodes this enormous fireball, and somehow this passport, you know,
Oh shit! It is.
Oh
Magic.
man. You're totally right.
look at his name.
Oh, holy cow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
that
in
is
so
nuts.
in Kabbalah, or Freemasonry, they play off, you know, like the sun, the light, and the dark. Saturn was considered the furthest, darkest planet at the in ancient times. So therefore, it was equated with Satan. It's a completely different ideology. You know, it's in occultism. In Christianity, basically, you understand that man is flawed and we all have a dark side and we have to deal with it. But you attempt to minimize it. Well, in their worldview, and this is why it's all kept secret because it's so nutty. In their worldview, you work to foster your dark side and you work to use the power. So it's all about balancing. Like all of their symbols represent this yin yang, male and female, Baphomet, balancing of the male and female energy. That's how you reach godhood, is by whenever you can balance your wicked and your good. You know, it's Aleister Crowley's "Do What Thou Wilt." And I personally believe that the elite are all Thelemites. They're following Crowley.
Hey guys, real quick, I tell you about our friends at Factor. That's right. With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for a jam-packed day. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Too busy to cook this fall, but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the extra trips to the grocery store and the chopping, the prepping, and the cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor of fresh, never frozen meals are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is do is heat and enjoy, then go back to crushing your goals. Level up your gourmet plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccoli, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Too busy running during the day to think about lunch? Keep your energy up with lunch to go. Effortless, wholesome meals like grain bowls and salad toppers that are ready to eat when you're on the go. No microwave required. Need an extra boost to support your wellness goals and feel your best as you tackle your busy autumn? Try Protein Plus meals with 30 grams of protein per serving. So here's where we need to go. This October, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meal, enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Okay? So here's what we need you to do. Head to factormeals.com/tinfoil50. Use the code tinfoil50 to get 50%.
I had no idea they went to the astrology so much, guys. That's pretty stunning.
Off. That's code tinfoil50 at factormeals.com/tinfoil to get 50% off. Everybody thinks Nimrod is the Antichrist. Part of me thinks Aleister Crowley might be along the lines of that.
Well, I think that Crowley just carried the spirit of Antichrist, and he shows up in all kinds of figures. Like before him was Helena Blavatsky, which the UN's religious branch was all based on her religion, which was satanic. Her and Alice Bailey. So, if you look at the events of 9/11, Aleister Crowley's religion is called Thelema, but it's known as 93. So the number 93 is shows up all the time in pop culture related to Satanism. Most significantly, you guys probably saw that. This one called Marina Abramovich.
Yes, like the woman who just got named the spokesperson for the Ukraine, which is insanity. Exactly. And I have a theory I want to talk to you about too after that.
Okay, well, I believe they're using this. Her work is just so blatant. I believe they're using this as part of the propaganda to further divide the left and the right. And they're trying to create the narrative that the left is satanic and evil, and the right is being conflated with saving the children, stopping human trafficking, and is going to come in and fix all of the horrific damage that Biden has done. So they're trying to make Biden and everything Biden is involved in to be as bad as possible. And this is what I believed would happen before Biden even got into office. I believe that the figure that they put in place as president would do exactly what Biden has done to scare people. But Marina Abramovich, 4 months before, she's from the Ukraine, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't know that.
No doubt.
Right, the Ukraine is very significant to our story. 4 months before Putin invaded the Ukraine.
I know the yellow and blue flag's got something to do with Satanism with the Ukraine. I can't remember what, but it's got something to do with the Satanism.
Abramovich unveiled a piece of public art that was called the Crying Wall of Crystals. And it was supposed to be an extension of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. So that ties us back to Solomon's Temple. Marina Abramovich also wears a Templar cross. And she lives in a 6-pointed star house.
Is that the artwork?
That's the artwork. Now, occultists believe in harnessing the power of energy in crystals and this kind of thing, you know. So
that guy's haircut needs some crystal help. Jeez.
So the thing about this wall is there's 93 crystals.
Oh my!
And Marina
my!
is associated. She's at Y93. You know, she's associated with Jay-Z, who is a Thalemite. You know, he pretty openly demonstrates his interest in Aleister Crowley. And Marina Abramovich is hosted by an art gallery who the art gallery also hosts the artist that painted Obama's really creepy presidential portrait. You know, the one where he's sitting in front of leaves?
Yeah.
Well, that portrait has a cryptic 666 over his head.
No.
Oh, look that up, bro. Look that up. Obama sitting leaves.
Yeah, I think if you type 666, he'll come in. I have one of those images that shows it.
I mean, did Johnny? I don't know if Johnny's still here. He's not feeling well.
I'm looking it up. I got it right here.
Okay.
But when conservatives point to Marina Abramovich, they call her satanic. And, you know, we have this photo of her standing with Jacob Rothschild in front of a painting called Satan Summoning His Legions. Now, how do you, how do you excuse that? Like, why did they do that? To me, it seems pretty obvious that they are trying to paint the narrative that she is, to equate the left and everything the left is doing with Satanism, whenever conservatives don't actually understand what Satanism is. I've seen it shared many times that Marina lives in a pentagram house, but whenever you actually research the house, it's publicized that it's a 6-pointed star, which is the seal of Solomon. And then she wears a Templar cross, which is another reference to Solomon.
Did that just loop?
Okay, so I believe she is a Thalemite that is involved in Masonry. There's tons and tons of Masonic symbolism surrounding her work. And it's really important to distinguish between this, because whenever you understand what Satanism truly is, you figure out and learn that it's not just one side of the political realm. It's both, which is scary for people.
Yeah, I mean, because we live in a time, we're entering a time where there are no rules. And like, I have a bunch of people who are my age and older that refuse to understand that the Democratic Party is the same as the Republican Party. And then there's people who think the Republican Party is saviors when it's like just as bad as the Democratic Party. They just play the game. It's like back and forth. So let me ask you a question here. What are your thoughts on Zelensky talking about how the Ukraine is the new Israel? Maria Abramovich is the spokesperson. Is there any argument that maybe they're trying to bring back Khazaria?
Oh, possibly. A good city to look up is a city called Astana, Kazakhstan. In my mind, it is the most Masonic place on earth. It's unbelievable.
How do you spell that? Because neither him nor I can spell what. How do you spell that name?
It's Astana. Type in Kazakhstan. You have to look this up because it's mind blowing. The capital city of Kazakhstan.
Yeah, here it is. Here's the spelling: Estonia. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan. Is that it?
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Now, right. You see the twin pillars?
Yep.
They have giant twin pillars. There's a giant pyramid. That image right there. This other tall structure is symbolic of the tree of life. See, that's symbolic of the tree of life right there.
Wow.
And this is where the Pope has been meeting with all the world leaders.
No way.
In his efforts to create this new one world religion.
Wow.
And, you know, the Jesuits are, the Knights Templar were created by the Catholic Church. It's a military order created by the Pope. And it has since been, you know, now it's just associated with Freemasonry. So I visit these locations myself to see them for myself and take photographs of them. So I toured the Scottish Rite headquarters, and I toured Washington's Masonic Memorial, and the very, very top.
They looked it up anyway.
Of this structure is a floor totally dedicated.
I couldn't have spelled Kazakhstan anyhow.
To the Knights Templar. And the tour guide told me that, what is her name? Natalie Portman had requested to sleep there because she was so fascinated with it. So whenever you go and look at these actual sites for yourself and you understand, you have a base level understanding of symbolism, you see that it's telling you a story of a plan, and it involves a pandemic that, you know, very, very similar to what we find ourselves in. And this would probably be a good entry point to link us back to 9/11. You know, coronavirus is named after corona occurs during a total solar eclipse. So the eclipse is a very, very significant symbol in Masonry because it's yet again Baphomet. It's male merging with female, dark merging with light. We are currently in between two historic total solar eclipses. These two eclipses will form a giant X over the United States. In the center point of this X is a town known as Little Egypt. The first eclipse occurred in 2017. The next eclipse is going to occur on April 8th, 2024. The most interesting thing about these eclipses are there are 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days between the eclipses.
No way!
What?
No way!
There hasn't been a equivalent eclipse since the Spanish flu of 1918.
Wow! So something bad's
And
coming,
here we are
guys.
in between these two eclipses with another pandemic.
Wow!
Now, the very first vaccine for the coronavirus, which refers to an eclipse, was given at the exact halfway point between the two eclipses on December 14, 2020.
I think they get inspired by the Holy Ghost to know this info. Otherwise, how do they know what to look up? They can't just think that up. It's got to be the Holy Ghost telling them to do it.
That's whenever they started giving out this shot. Exactly between the eclipses.
When was the first eclipse again?
August 21st, 2017. The second eclipse in 2024. And on December 14th, 2020, that was exactly between the two eclipses, they started giving out the COVID vaccine. Now, because I know these guys are so super obsessed with numerology, I wanted to know how old Donald Trump was whenever he turned 666 months, what date that would be. It was the same date of 2001 when the twins came down.
No.
No way.
December 14th. He turned exactly 666 months.
Wow.
Hold on 9/11, he turned 666 months.
No, in 2001, on December 14 is whenever they rolled out the coronavirus jabs.
Okay.
They started giving out the shots.
Okay.
But in 2001, December 14, Donald Trump turned exactly 666 months old.
Oh my God.
And on top of that, if you look up the vaccine, the customer service number, both Moderna and Pfizer have 666 in their customer service numbers.
What?
If you want to call Larry Silverstein Properties, the guy who owned the Twin Towers, he has 666 in his phone number. The construction company that built the Twin Towers also built 666 Fifth Avenue that Jared Kushner bought. And he bought it for the numerology because he's a Kabbalist.
Wow.
And because I don't pick on Biden as much as I pick on Trump. And the reason is because Biden's not fooling anybody. You know, nobody's going to be supporting Biden.
Where Trump is, she's going to say. That's a good point. That's why I watch this, so we get a real idea on Trump, because he's going to get the presidency again unless something happens.
Biden doesn't have influence over us. Donald Trump does, though, because Donald Trump looks very appealing right now.
All this is theater, right? Do you think it's, I mean, like the most
It's
elaborate
just theater.
After Q, I was like, dude, they could pull off anything. They could pull off any elaborate prank, hoax, whatever they want after that.
Right.
I mean, it's
I believe it's definitely theater. Like, I believe that Donald Trump was born. His mother was Elizabeth Christ Trump, who died on 66.
No
June 6th
way.
of 66.
And I know Trump was born on a blood moon. She hasn't mentioned that yet, I don't think.
But so does Trump know he's in on it? Like, he completely understands that that's his part, that's his job?
Yes. I believe he does. I believe he was born to do this manipulation. You know, Operation Warp Speed is his doing.
I mean, he did help with the January 6th as well. The January 6th, he did participate and make people go in there, which made it,
Yes, and if you look at the logo for Operation Warp Speed, it's a cube. And if you notice, Donald Trump always has his hand in this position, making the triangle, which is the symbol for female energy. Well, Donald Trump has a very aggressive, male, strong personality. So I believe that's why he holds his hands in the female personality, because he's then merging his male energy with female energy, creating godhood. Wow. And if you look up Trump Tower has this same down angled triangle worked into the design. And it's also made up of 6 levels on each side of the triangle. So there's a cryptic 666 in Trump Tower in that, you see the little, right there, See, there's 6 steps on each side of that triangle. And Trump Tower is 664 feet tall, and I guarantee to 666. You know.
Oh,
Seems a bit much for coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. They're two.
Now, whenever Trump was running for office, he has a team, and everyone surrounding him were wearing little upside down triangles on their suits. And people in the media were asking questions of what that meant. They didn't have any, the excuse was it was just a way to identify who was with Trump, but I don't believe that. I believe that is his occult symbol for manifesting that type of energy. because these occultists believe this stuff, you know. Like if you watch this last Super Bowl with Rihanna, at the very end of her performance, she held up the triangle of manifestation over the audience.
And they didn't show it. They didn't show it on TV though.
They didn't show it on TV.
No, if you can see it on people's TikToks and people's, like, it was more like a Instagram thing, but the TV took that off.
Yeah, yeah, and she has Isis tattooed on her chest. And Isis is the wife of Osiris. Now, I had a really, really strange thing happen to me because I toured Washington's Masonic Memorial. And because I toured it, I had to give them my name and address, which I wasn't super excited about, but I did it because it was worth it. And coincidentally, I got a piece of mail from them. And it turns out that they were celebrating their 100th anniversary of their cornerstone laying, which occurred in 1923. So 100 years later was their celebration of this cornerstone event. Now the cornerstone is just a cube. Okay,
Trying to get rid of the glare, guys.
Cube worship, which is a perversion of the Bible, because in the Bible, Christ is known as our cornerstone, and the occult perverts, flips everything that's in the Bible. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Masonry, the cornerstone laying event comes from Freemasonry. Now get this. After Rihanna does her thing, where she's also pregnant, which is symbolic of the goddess Ishtar. Rihanna, Ishtar is also known as Iana, so it's spelled almost exactly alike. Right after she does this, the very first commercial after that is a woman.
Rihanna, Iana.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And she has Isis tattooed on her chest.
Yeah.
So right after she flashes that that triangle over the audience, the very first commercial is a woman representing some sort of like a flag football league, and she's wearing number 33. Okay. So just a couple days after Rihanna performs, she shares her birth date with the 100th anniversary of the cornerstone laying ritual at Washington's Masonic Memorial.
Talia, I think, is a bit of both. She's smart and she's got a bit of a gift as well.
So, and they know these dates, or they just be doing what they're told?
No. They definitely know these dates. Like George Washington became president on April 30. That's whenever the Church of Satan was founded.
Wow.
That's when Hitler died. And then if you look at the Church of Satan, if you go into their website, top satanic numbers are 9, 11, Baphomet, and of course there's a degree in the Church of Satan called a MAGA, M-A-G-A.
What?
And MAGA in almost every language translates to magic or some variation of the word magician. And I believe that Trump truly is a, that's what these guys believe. They believe they can manipulate through energy. That's what's taught in the highest levels of the Freemasonry. They all believe that they're wizards. Sorcerers.
But let me ask you something. Do you think you can manipulate energy?
I think that that's like a yes or no answer, because I believe that we are all channelers. So we're either going to channel. Personally, I'm Christian, so I believe we're either channeling the good God from the Bible, or we're going to channel the opposite of that, which is the devil. And these folks truly believe that it's the pathway to enlightenment is learning how to balance both the dark and light in this world. So I believe that the devil works on a reward system. So if you believe in manifestation and you start heading down this pathway, this new age pathway, which is kind of like a slippery slope, I believe that the devil gives us little rewards along the way where things kind of confirm your efforts.
Look at Doggy.
And it's ultimately just tricks that the devil's play. But by the time you're a 30th degree Freemason and you have done this practice, you know, it's been confirmed in your mind that what you're doing actually works. You know, so
Hi, Susan, welcome to the channel.
It's hard to answer because yes, I believe it actually works. I believe that these folks can really do things that would blow our minds, but I also believe that it's the trick of the devil, which just gets people. I mean, occultism is very, very attractive and appealing because there is a lot of truth to it. You know, and that's one reason why Masonry is so prolific, is because you start getting into these degrees, you start learning about the world and things about the world that are very true that the average citizen has no idea about. You know, like, for instance, that there is actually a real pattern and design to the stars.
Susan, this lady here's an eye-opener. She's dropping some stunning information. It's pretty interesting.
So if you go into Washington's Masonic Memorial, there's 2 pillars sitting on a chair that he sat in. And on each of these pillars,
Who's he?
George Washington.
Okay.
Each of these pillars, there's a globe sitting on top of the pillars. And one is a globe of the earth, and the other one is a globe representing the zodiac. Okay, so this speaks to their religion of following astrology. And this would be a good place to kind of pivot back to the royal family, because I believe that they are like the top of Freemasonry. The Queen's cousin is the current Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of England. He's basically the top person on all of Freemasonry. So all of the royal family has been involved in Masonry all along. That's what I believe it is. Not long before the Queen died, you may have seen the video of it, but she celebrated her Jubilee, and they were outside, and there was this strange box with a light on top of it. She goes over and hits this box. It illuminates, and then there are 2 or 3 strands of lights shone out across the grand landscape that connect to a tree, which symbolized the tree of life. So this, if you look it up, it looks just like DNA connected to the tree of life.
So the tree of life, you mean with the bubbles, the bubble, all the way up. Is that evil?
Right.
Is that what?
Yes. Yes, I believe that it is. I believe that it was created as a pathway to communicate with demonic entities.
Oh my!
I believe that's how.
I know nothing anymore. I have no clue what the fuck's going on. I'm just a windsock at this point.
No, you're not.
I'm so
okay.
lost.
So, all right. So, so the Queen, I had a feeling she was going to die in 2022 because of this. The day she died was 911 days after the pandemic was declared, which was also 7,666 days after 9/11.
No way. No way.
Oh my God.
I mean, how in the world could that be a coincidence?
So you said that there's a proper way to worship the good God.
Okay, they've got to sacrifice the queen for her to die on a certain day. They have to sacrifice her, don't they?
Is that what you said earlier? Along the lines of that? What is that?
Right.
How do you do that?
Well, I believe the story of Christ is true.
Yep.
And I believe the occultists believe it too, because I believe that they are warring with the God of the Bible. In the book called The History of Freemasonry, Albert Mackey writes that Masons were the original builders of the Temple of Solomon and the Tower of Babel. And, you know, what a thing to claim. The Tower of Babel is the structure created to kill God ultimately. And I believe that is what they are attempting to do now with the knowledge that they are obtaining through their practices, which I believe is real. I believe that's how, you know, people come to the conclusion that we have to be living in a simulation, because they're like, how do they line everything up so perfectly?
They don't.
Well, I believe that this is all demonically inspired. And Kabbalists, what a Kabbalist does is learn about this pattern that's been here all along. And they set their rituals to it. A perfect example of this is President Biden. We've lived through several really significant celestial events. One of the most significant was the great Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which occurred in 2021. This also fell on the winter solstice, so it was the darkest day of the year.
And what happened?
It was this historic Saturn conjunction, which hasn't occurred in 800 years.
And what happened?
This was the day that President Biden chose to take his first vaccine at exactly 322.
Oh my God.
And you know what 322 is, 322 skull and bones, right?
Oh,
Wow.
Well, not only that, but this was also 9 months and 11 days after they declared the global pandemic on 3/11. Now, the reason why 3/11, before COVID hit, I was very alarmed that they were planning an event. I took social media and I told my friends that they're planning an event for 3/11/2020. And that's the day they declared the pandemic. And the reason why, there are many reasons why I thought that, but one interesting aspect of what it symbolizes is 9/11 on the wheel of the year. The polar opposite of 9/11 is 3/11. Okay, so it's like it's opposite. So you have that connection.
Christ probably died at
311,
311.
11, which is 33, which, by the way, is Joe Biden's text number, 3033. And, you know, the conservatives were sharing the meme that if you divide 2020 by 666, you get Joe Biden's text number.
What?
Which, you know, that's all they hear is the 666. They don't recognize the 33 because they don't understand that Satanism and Freemasonry and all of this, and, you know, the Jesuits and the Catholic Church is all part of one cult, just wearing different hats. All they hear is Satanism, so they've been primed to equate the left with, you know, evil. And they don't understand that it's actually the same cult that Donald Trump is involved in, right?
So much chaos.
But, you know, the interesting,
What's going on?
the thing about the Templar cross, what is the Templar cross? Okay, so it's just a cross like this, and it represents the equinox. 322 is the spring equinox. All right, and I just learned this. This blew me away because this is something I suspected all along. When they switched over from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, they had to skip 10 days So 311 was the original spring equinox. 311 and 911 were the original equinox. All right, so this is what is represented on a Templar's cross. And, you know, the person that influenced Donald Trump the most in his life was a Knights Templar. And if you look at the Sound of Freedom, which I believe is more Masonic propaganda to usher people to the light side of Masonry, the guy, Jim, what's his last name? Chavez?
Hold on. What is the one guy had some weird kind of symbolism on his shirt?
Yeah, he had little square compasses on his tie.
Yeah.
But more significantly than that, in my mind, is the guy who played Tim Ballard in the movie named Jim. I forget his last name. He wears a specific Knights Templar cross. Okay, I went and watched the movie because I wanted to see the symbolism. At the very end of the movie, Jim comes out with a special message, and he's wearing this cross. And it can't be mistaken for anything else. It is a specific Knights Templar cross, and he's also one of the guys who covers one eye all the time, you know, like all the celebrities do. And Sound of Freedom was produced by Angel Studios. Angel Studios also produced The Chosen. Well, the guy who plays in
Diane, that's why I played this video, because I started to get sucked in by Trump again. So I thought I better watch this video.
The Chosen came out and openly admitted he was a Knights Templar. He posted it on his social media.
All sorcery.
The problem is Christian, because we are so uneducated on what all of these things are, you know, the Christians hear the Knights Templar and they might Google it and be like, oh, well, they're the protectors of Solomon's Temple. Sounds nice. You know, they recognize Solomon's Temple from the Bible. So they just kind of equate it to some sort of, it has to be some sort of Christian organization, whenever it is absolutely not. You know, Jacques de Molay was the 23rd and final Grand Master of the Knights Templar. And he was, you probably know the story of Jacques de Molay, who was burned at the stake for practicing basically the same stuff that Aleister Crowley was doing. You know, he was doing dark occultism. And that's why he was killed, if you believe the story. But the interesting thing is if you Google what day Jacques de Molay died, Google will tell you he died on 3/11.
So 3/11 is the real 9/11.
3/11, it's just connecting 3/11 to 9/11, which I believe the two events are symbolic of this belief of merging the pillars, and, you know, messing with man's DNA, because I believe the pillars represent the double helix.
So do you think that Lucifer is Satan, or do you think Lucifer is a different entity than Satan?
No, I believe it's the same entity.
Same dude, yeah.
I believe Lucifer and Satan are the same entity. It's just
and Beelzebub is the same as well.
They're worshiping the light and dark aspect of Satan.
So interesting.
But whenever you get into Masonry, they lie about all of this. You know, they purposefully lie to the low level initiates about what all the symbolism means. No, I mean, of course they would. And so the people who rise to the top of Freemasonry are the people who are the most compromised.
I just realized something,
Yeah.
and I just want to take a moment to recognize that Xavier Guerrero learned how to spell something better than I did, and as much crap as I give him all the time, he got Astania right, and I got it completely wrong. So respect to Xavier Guerrero. But you know,
Babel's working. Babel.
You did great, bro. You did great. Respect to you, man. I have to give you your flowers when you are correct. And the reason I bring that up because I eventually found it. And you know, we live in the inverted reality, right?
Right.
So just think about what Borat tried to tell everybody about Kazakhstan. That
Exactly.
it's a bunch of sheep herding inbred idiots. And then you look at their actual what's going on in their country. It's the exact opposite of that.
I am so glad you brought that up. I had that exact same thought. I'm like, I can't believe this guy. He's got us thinking that this is like a dumpster country,
cow, man.
When it's the exact opposite.
It is the great inversion. It is the inversion. He just completely duped all Americans to think we're making fun of.
Which means Borat is aware of what's his name? Sacha Cohen Baron? Which means he's aware of what's going on.
Keep hurting cousin humpers. In reality, look at their whole cities, man.
Right. That's where the Pope is meeting with all the world leaders.
Dude, oh my.
Wow. 3D chess. This is like 3D chess.
This is like 5D chess. This is like 90D chess. It's all in inversion.
Yes. Okay. And another layer of proof of what's going on here is, it all has to do with astrology. Okay. So I'm going to try to explain this. 2022 was the year of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Okay. The last time this happened was in 1856, a very long time ago. All right, let me tell you everything that happened in 1856. First of all, imagine 1856 in your mind. It's a cryptic 9/11. Okay, 1818 is 9, 56 is 11.
Oh my God!
Let me tell you everything that happened in 1856.
What?
If you the castle that the Queen died in was established in 1856. The Russell Trust Association, which is where we get Skull and Bones, was founded in 1856. Let's see, there's a whole bunch of these.
No, I mean,
okay.
dude.
All right, here's the
presidential election. The presidential election as well.
No, I don't know about that, but
no.
The image Baphomet. Baphomet was first drawn by Eliphas Levi in 1856.
What?
And Baphomet is a symbolic representation of their dualistic religion. That's all it is representing dualism. And I could not believe this. When I was recently in Washington, D.C., I went to Alexandria. That's where Washington's Masonic Memorial is. Well, really, in that same city is where Werner von Braun is buried.
What?
Wow.
So I went to see his grave site in person.
Okay, I know who von Braun is, but why does it matter where he was buried? She's about to tell us, I guess.
And I don't know, I just think of these things because I know how significant dates are. The cemetery Werner von Braun is buried in was established 1856.
Okay.
So it's like, it's unbelievable because that's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. This great war with Russia invading the Ukraine happens in the year of this conjunction. In the Super Bowl, the commercials for it, Arnold Schwarzenegger played Zeus, which is Jupiter, okay? And in the same commercial, Neptune makes an appearance. So you have Jupiter and Neptune
Poseidon.
In a Super Bowl commercial.
Neptune's Poseidon.
Of a historic Jupiter and Neptune conjunction.
That's so crazy. I looked up 1908, everything that happened in 1856. One of the things, Jupiter and Neptune conjunction was lasting in 1856.
Yeah. Yep. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you know his family history, his father was an SS
Or hundreds.
Nazi.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see ya.
And he wears a skull and bones. He wears a skull necklace, and I believe it's in reference to Skull and Bones. And the very first concentration camp was opened on 3/22, 1933.
No
And the
way.
symbol that the SS wears on their hat is a skull and bones. So I believe it's all just one. I believe that the Nazis were part of this satanic dark arts. He was like a dark adversarial figure.
So this might be like on a whole different like tangent, but satanic wise, I don't know if you know Kat Von D, but she just became a Christian. She just got baptized. Do you think there's a reason for that? Because I mean, she was the main person for goth and emo, and she just became Christian, which is great. But it's like, where did that come from? I was surprised. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I don't want to ever say someone's conversion is not real or anything like that, but I'm also really suspicious on how the Christian conservatives are.
Arnold Hammernagen Bacon Burger. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Manipulated right now. There's a lot of Christian propaganda with these movies that are very clearly being produced by Freemasons. So I don't want to say that it's not genuine, but I'm like proceed with caution, because I really feel like one of their strongest weapons is manipulating the Christian conservatives in this country for whatever their next little move is. You have to have a strong, great leader to have the population follow that leader into something. People are not going to follow Biden anywhere, but people.
You're saying they're corralling everybody into Trump,
right? Yeah.
Which I've felt before. Like all this is theory. He just keeps beating these cases, and they just keep losing. And it's just like, I mean, nothing's sticking, nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that Christ has had 5 mortal wounds, and I believe Trump has how many now? 4. So I bet you he'll get one last one.
Whoa.
And it's
Okay, she's basically putting Trump on the Antichrist. He's going to get a head wound. I think that's what she's basically saying.
It's all tip of the spear. Christ was killed. The final wound was a spear, and Trump Tower is in the shape of a spear. And Sound of Freedom, Tim Ballard's his organization is called Tip of the Spear. So I believe it's symbolic of them believe that they are going to kill the God of the Bible. Ultimately, that's the long. People need to zoom out, like way out, get things in perspective. I believe the United States was created to ultimately build this third temple. So,
well, El Dorado, who has got me the ball rolling into Christianity for me, talks about the Bible, talks about a war between the pagans and the lost tribes of Israel, which he believes is the Israel, the UK, England, and America versus the pagans. Yeah. And the pagans win in this story through the Bible. And it's very interesting. I got to ask you something before we go, Susan. How do you live in this society when you know all this stuff? I get asked that all the time, but you're even deeper than I am. And how do you function in this world of deception?
Well, I would have to give credit to my faith for all of that. But whenever I was first discovering all this stuff before the pandemic hit, it hit me really hard because I had to really calibrate, and it's a lot to process. So I struggled with it quite a bit around 2020. But since then, I have, become friends with a handful of folks who have a similar worldview, and we are very supportive of one another. And I've learned more and figured out more, and I'm just I know what the ultimate goal is, and
Talia, he hasn't got a criminal record yet.
I feel like it's a spiritual war. And I feel like I know where my soul is going whenever all this wraps up. So I find peace in that. But yeah, I just basically look at it as an adventure, because there's not a day that's boring, everything's just so fascinating to me, and I really enjoy helping others see what's going on here, because I feel like I've been given a little bit of a gift of understanding, and I've been able to, in my own way, kind of share with others what's going on here. But I do like to de-emphasize the fear aspect, because I believe they want us to be afraid. The conservatives are just totally eat up with anxiety over what Biden is doing. They feel like this country is just going into the dumpster because of everything Biden's doing.
Do you not think it's going into the dumpster?
Well, I do ultimately, because I believe that the United States was created as an atonement sacrifice. In the Kabbalah, the text for Kabbalah is the Zohar, and the Zohar prophesies that.
I think she has got a gift. She's got a gift for dates and things. I think she's got a legitimate gift.
Edom, which is equated to the United States, will fall before their messianic figure arrives. So I do believe that the plan is to collapse the United States eventually. But I've accepted all of this, and
how do you prepare?
Pray to the Lord.
I prepare by trying to keep myself healthy. That's my main message, is for people to tap out of their system, to not eat their food, not take their vaccines, to minimize how you spend your money with them, to try to be more self-sustaining in many ways as you can. I'm not like a prepper. I don't believe that there's any way that we can plan for whatever is the next chapter. I have the bare minimum prepped, but I really don't think that there's a way that anyone can prepare for what's coming. But I'm not anxious about it. I've just kind of accepted it. So.
It's interesting times, man. Interesting times. Gotta get right with God. Gotta get right.
Yes. With God. Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's what we all have to do, is just, prepare yourself spiritually, because that's what they're after anyway.
Have you ever heard that the day of rest is Friday and not Sunday?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not.
Isn't Friday the Muslims' Sabbath? I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm not rigid on that kind of stuff. I just try to stick to 1 day a week.
The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Exactly right. I'm on her side here.
Where I rest. And
I gotta get to that. I gotta get to that.
I work for myself on
Sundays, Fridays. I gotta work.
It usually ends up being a Sunday. which maybe
Maybe I don't
biblically
go on
isn't
the road, and
correct.
I just love the Lord. Love
Right.
the Lord. Stay home on
Good.
Fridays. Do
Yeah, I think
Saturday
it's
early
important.
show. Hope and pray. Dude, interesting, Susan. As always, you come and you completely foobar my brain, and then I question my reality. So I appreciate that. But it's always more pieces to the puzzle. I've always said this thing. The world is ran by sorcerers, trying to detach you from God. Now the question is, we just have to figure it all. Just have to figure it all out. We have to figure it all out. But everything you're saying is lining up to what I believe, and it's interesting times, man. Susan, one more time, tell them where they can find you.
Oh, I'm Susan Harrell, HARRELL.com. That's to view my artwork, or you could check out my Instagram account at Susie Q's, SUZIECUES_. And I'm also launching a Patreon. I haven't announced that yet, but I'll be launching that soon. And it will be under the same name, Susie Q's. And that's all the sites set now.
All right, Susan, you came, you saw, you dropped the hammer of the God on us, so we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you can put together your brain after this, because it's been quite an experience, a lot to digest, and I hope you got a lot out of it like I did. Again, go to samtripoli.com for all of my dates, all my premium content. You can click banners there. Rockfin.com's all there. All the t-shirts. We got a new t-shirt coming out, which is Yahweh of the Highway. That's going to be available on samtripoli.com. All our affiliates programs, all that stuff. You'll hear all about that coming up now, and also some highlights from our show, my other shows. Please enjoy the highlights.
Okay, guys, got something else lined up, as usual. Okay, this is Vlad Suvchuk. We know this guy. We just discovered him, and he's got a guy who's been 90 minutes in heaven, and if Vlad's playing him, he must be credible. So this should be interesting.
Moved us to tears, touched our heart, and today we're going to hear more about Don Piper's story, as well as a little bit later we're going to hear about the film that every Christian should bring their family members and unbelieving friends and skeptics to go and see, and have this conversation starter about Christian faith. And so, Don, good morning, or some people will be watching this later, so good morning to you, and a pleasure to have you with me today on YouTube channel.
What an honor it is to be here. Thank you for having me. I've looked forward to this.
Don, on January of 1989, you were in a car accident. You found yourself actually in heaven. And if you can kind of take us to that day of the accident, of what happened, and how did you go to heaven?
I was on my way to church, which I guess is a good step towards heaven, but I was a pastor. I am a pastor.
Okay.
On my way to church from a pastor's conference,
Oh,
about 120, 130 miles from my church in southeast Texas. And so it was a cold
You won a
day,
solar
and
issue.
I was ready to get home. I enjoyed the conference, but I didn't get to bring my wife. She is a teacher, has been a teacher. She's retired now. And she couldn't come with me because she had a bunch of new students.
Sounds like an oxymoron. A solar cooler. So you got the sun turning something cold. Sounds like an oxymoron.
And so I was by myself.
Yeah,
We
that's
had
it.
hoped it would be a getaway for the two of us. We had 3 small kids, and we were looking forward to get away. Thank goodness she was not with me that
Post
day,
link, Shawnee.
because after I left the conference, I was crossing a bridge, very narrow bridge, in a rural area. And then before I exited the opposite end of the bridge, a tractor trailer truck, an 18-wheeler, came down a steep embankment onto the bridge and said he was swerving to miss a car in his lane that was very slow and came into my lane and hit me head on, and the driver's side wheels just ran over
Anything free is awesome.
my car because there were rails on the bridge. I didn't have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
He ran over me, killed me instantly, went off the back of my car and hit two more vehicles before he finally brought the rig to a halt. So I died there on the bridge. You know, we're going to take our last breath here one day, and we're going to take it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was prepared for death. I think heaven is a prepared place for prepared people. I just wasn't planning to die that day.
Mm-hmm.
And who is? So the moment the truck struck me, I was standing at the gates of heaven.
Wow.
No long tunnel, no bright light at the end. I was killed at about 110 miles an hour of combined impact.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an instant death.
So you don't remember any?
There.
Do you remember any pain? Was it like very painful? It wasn't a slow death.
No.
Okay,
No, I
Kelly,
was
good
given
night. God
pain
bless.
For probably 3 or 4 hours, at least a couple of hours, 3 or 4 hours from the accident time, but maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours after I returned, I would start to feel pain because I was even in shock here on the planet. But I wasn't on the planet. I was standing at one of the 12 gates of heaven. Revelation tells us there are 12 of them. I was at one, and it looked like the inside of an oyster. It is, without a doubt, a pearl gate. You know, we heard about the pearly gates all of our lives. That's not mythological. That is factual. And it was a magnificent gate. I thought it was a living gate because it seemed to be glowing, glistening. But I think it was the light reflecting off the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Because heaven is so brilliant, we'd be blinded by it with earthly eyes, but we won't have any earthly eyes there. We have heavenly eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surrounded by people I'd known and loved in life who had preceded me in death. I knew all of them. I now know that they were sent to greet me, so I'd know where I was. The first person I saw was my grandfather. Very
Mm-hmm.
close to him. I've been with him when he died, actually. Rode with him in the ambulance after he had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the one that they notified after his.
Yeah, Shawnee, I just checked it out. That might be copyrighted, so I don't. If it is copyrighted, I'll lose the last 2.5 hours I've just done. So I'll play that Carol when I do a redacted one where I delete the videos anyway, because I can't risk the copyright.
Death. I've had a lot of broken bones in my body, and nothing hurts like a broken heart. When Papa died, it just broke my heart. Now I'm standing at the gates of heaven, and there he is to greet me.
Wow.
He extended his arms and said in a language I've never heard before, but fully understood, "Welcome home, Donnie." That's what he called me here on earth. And I knew where I was because I knew where he was. And
Wow.
people there were beautiful. If you want to be beautiful,
Uh-huh.
heaven is the place you should be. Because back on earth, to say the very least, I would never be the same because I had so many scars and skin grafts and
Mm-hmm.
incisions and plastic surgery, but not in heaven. The only person in heaven with scars
It's
is
Jesus.
Jesus, to remind the rest of us of how we got there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's said that the only man-made thing in heaven
Uh-huh.
are scars.
So you meet your family members, and in fact, you actually describe heaven as the greatest family reunion of all time.
It is. Yeah, it is. And, you know, a lot of us, by tradition, especially when we were growing up, we had family reunions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were at holiday times or something like that. And I can remember doing that when I was a kid. I had a very large family. My dad was one of 10 kids, and they had large families. So it was quite an occasion. But in heaven, it's a different thing. They're not just family members. We're all family members in heaven, but there were next door neighbors. There were kids. They had been kids when they died from high school. There were all manner of people, but I knew them all. Some teachers. So that is a family in heaven, and it is a family reunion, and it is magnificent. because in many cases, when we're at the funerals of these people, we don't really ever expect to see them again.
Mhm.
I expected to see them again. I just didn't expect to see them that day, but they were all there to greet me. And in the 35 years since this happened, they've been joined by a lot of other people, including my own daughter, who died in December of 2022. So I didn't, not the natural order of things to bury your children,
Mm-hmm.
but so I know she'll be there to greet me
Mm-hmm.
when I return finally.
What about people? Did you see children there? How old were people in heaven?
I didn't see any children, and some people are discouraged by that because they lose people when they are children. You go back to the creation. Adam and Eve were never created as children. As far as we know, they never had a childhood.
Mhm.
And I believe that's the age that we'll all be, because that's the age that, if there is such a thing as an age in the Garden of Eden, I think that's the age that God created people to be.
Shawnee, around Christmas Eve, I'm going to do a carols night, and I'll play some songs that are copyrighted because I'll delete it anyway. So I'll do it on the night before Christmas Eve or something. Because I'm going to do the Christmas carols.
We age here in heaven because we've sinned. The wages of death sin is the wages of death. We are going to die because we are born into sin. I think if we had never sinned, we would never have aged. So I find the people in heaven ageless. There is no time in heaven, so there's no birth in heaven. There's no death in heaven. It's ageless. That's not an issue. The subject never comes up. We are just ageless. And so I fully recognized everybody for who they were, but I didn't really seem to pay much attention to what age they appeared to be, because they were so perfect. They were so without blemish or spot. My grandfather was missing fingers on both of his hands. And when he reached out to me in heaven, all of his fingers were there. I'd never seen them before. My great grandmother was standing beside him. She had osteoporosis and she was all slumped over. In heaven, she was 6 inches taller, and she was missing her teeth here on earth, like a lot of elderly people were back in those days. She smiled at me. It was the first time I ever saw her real smile.
With her teeth.
So it's perfection. Yeah. It was dazzling. It was so beautiful. And of course, I had never seen it here. She hardly ever wore her dentures, her false teeth. She did not like them. But in heaven, she was expecting me. So when she saw me, she smiled at me, and it was perfection. It is something that I will never forget. I can't wait to see it again.
Wow, that's so cool.
And Don, were you also given an opportunity to see other people that we know from the Bible, or did you see Jesus?
Good question.
I think they're all inside.
Okay. So you didn't go inside.
These people actually came out to meet me.
Okay.
They greeted me at the gate. Let me say this. No one sneaks up on heaven. Everybody up there knows it's coming. And they knew I was coming.
Wow.
I mean, every time someone makes a decision here to become a follower of Christ, a believer, they write your name in a book up there, a registration book, like you would find at the front desk of an old hotel. They know you're coming. They're expecting you. And so they celebrate that decision up there. Every time someone makes a decision here, they celebrate up there and call your name. So these people were expecting me, and they knew I was coming. All the other folks, the Moses, the Marys, all those people, they're inside. And I could see the people inside, but only in a distance. And I could see thrones high and lifted up in the center of the city. And it is a great city of God. And the brightest light of all was coming from those thrones. And I know that's where Jesus was. In fact, I was so excited about that, even though I was with the people who greeted me and loved being there. I wanted to part them and go through the very thick wall and the very small gate and climb that hill and fall at the feet of Jesus and say, thank you for letting me come. But I never got a chance to get that close. And in a strange way, I think I'm glad I didn't get that close. I came back to such a horrific experience of, 13 months in a hospital bed and 34 operations. Had I seen Jesus and then lost that experience, even for a few moments, and it's been years now, I don't think I would have been able to function here at all, really. I don't.
Wow.
I had enough trouble as it was.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd seen Jesus face to face, then I think I would have been non-functional here completely, because I was in really sad shape when I came back.
Mm-hmm. So if we go back a little bit into, were you aware of time there? What
Good question.
Was it day, morning, night? What was your awareness of time?
Barry, I knew it'd be a good story because this guy on the left, we just discovered him, and he's really good. He's very safe. So if I knew he had this guest on, the guest would be safe. And it turns out I was right. Thank God.
No time, no night, just brilliant, incredibly brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is any time in heaven. Very difficult for us earthbound people to think of the word eternal, because hardly anything. I mean, we look at mountains and think, my goodness, how long have those been there?
Mm-hmm.
We look at the ocean and think about. I mean, heaven exists. I don't think it's complete, because one of the last things Jesus said to his followers were, I go to prepare a place for you, and if I do, I will come again and receive you unto myself,
Wow.
and where I am, you will be also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, who better than a carpenter king to build us a better place? So I think in some ways heaven is under construction, but it's a magnificent place. It's God's place.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants us to be with him. He always did, really.
Mm-hmm.
He always did, until we drove a wedge between us and him with our disobedience. So heaven is a real place. There's no time. The reason the name of my first book is called 90 Minutes in Heaven is because the accident happened at 11:45 on the bridge, and a man crawled into the wreckage of the car and prayed over my dead body under the tarp in the dark. And at 1:15, I started praying. I started singing with him. He was singing, and I started singing the song. So it was 90 minutes from the time the truck struck me until the man was singing. In heaven, you're not conscious of any time like that. There's really no time. It's propelled forward, but there is no elapse of time,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no time in heaven. It's eternal. And
You were mentioning about singing, and for
Yes.
those of you just tuning in right now, go ahead and hit like to the stream, to this video. If you are rewatching this down the road, this day or next day or next year, go ahead and hit like and share this with your friends and with your family, because for Christians, heaven is our home. It's our hope. It's not some kind of an idea that we comfort ourselves with. It's our place where God dwells, where we are going to that place, and we have to currently be thinking about that place, not because we want to die and we don't like the earth, but because it's our blessed hope, and we all need more hope today. And so, and Don is talking about his experience when he went through a car accident, and he immediately went to heaven, and he stood at the gates, and he saw his family members who passed away, and started to have these beautiful experiences. Can you tell us a little bit about the music that was there?
Whoa.
I find it a little remarkable now that it's my most vivid memory of heaven. I kind of am a music person. I started out after school, as a disc jockey on the radio. So I listen to, oh my goodness, hundreds of songs every day. So I've always been very musical. But I think the reason I was so impressed with the music is because it's portable. I could bring it back with me, and I hear it all the time. In heaven, there were thousands of songs at the same time, all praising God, for he alone is worthy of our worship. The music is for him, but we get to hear it. We're beneficiaries of the music. They were symbiotic. All the songs were symbiotic. They all
Fed off each other.
They did not conflict with each other. And there were all kinds of songs. whether they were anthems or praise songs or instrumental songs, or it was just a magnificent.
Wow.
It permeated you. The music went through you, and so that music is I long for it. And the more weary I grow here on earth, in my soul, the louder that music gets.
Wow.
It's like I'm closer again to the gates of heaven. So God likes music. It's a wonderful way to communicate. I've been all over the world, and I've been in many worship experiences where I did not understand what they were saying at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see the expressions in their face, and you knew what was in their hearts, and you were reminded that it's not for us anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's for Him, and He loves to hear from His people, whether it's verbal in prayers or praising Him with song and instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that music is very vivid to me, and I literally carry it with me day and night, all the days of my life, until I can hear it again in person.
How were your senses there? What did you, was there an overload on your human senses, or were you were given the opportunity to
Okay, Vlad's asking some really good questions.
have total different body that had total different way to absorb the surroundings that you were
Yeah,
in?
good question.
Yeah, I call it a buffet for the senses. It was a sensory explosion, all of them. Obviously, sight, with having angels above me. Some of them had 6 wings, some had 2, some had none. And the gates and the Golden Boulevard running down the center of the city. So you had certainly things that you could see, certainly things you could hear, whether it was the angels singing above me or the music emanating from heaven. There were even aromas. I know the Bible talks about the prayers, the incense, the aroma of the prayers of the saints emanating from the throne of God. So all of them, I embraced my grandfather. He embraced me. All the senses are heightened exponentially, and it's just simply the most real experience I've ever had in my existence. And since I came back to some powerful experiences here on Earth with all those surgeries and experimental treatments and things, I know now, or have an appreciation for how awesome heaven really is compared to some of the excruciatingly difficult and painful things we experience here on Earth. The contrast was stark, and I can't wait to go back there. But yes, our senses, which are gifts from God, are heightened completely. It's a completely different experience. You know, we can forget what we know about Earth because heaven is not like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so far beyond that we have no words. The reason I resisted even talking about this, certainly writing a book about it, was how do you do it with earthly words? What earthly words do we have that would do the majesty and glory of heaven justice? We don't. We can do the best we can, try to communicate with each other, but heaven is so far beyond any words that we could use here on earth that it's a completely different experience from this.
And you know, and Don, for those of you that are just tuning in or rewatching, he's also a part of a movie. He has a movie about his story, but there's also a documentary called After Death. And I find it interesting that in that documentary, there was this common thread that people were saying that when they went to heaven, they felt like they were truly alive. It's almost like they woke up from a sleep. It's almost like this world here is like we are in some kind of a sleep, and there is when truly everything wakes up, all of our senses, all of our sight, and we're able to like even what you just mentioned, become alive, most alive. You know, most of us think of death as being most not alive. You're talking about an experience where actually we will become most alive.
I think we'll be what we were meant to be when God created us in the first place.
Mm.
And that is far beyond anything that we are here now. Oh, we have glimpses of glory here on the planet. I mean, go to a mountaintop and watch a sunrise.
Yeah.
I mean, hold a baby. I mean, there are things that happen here that are marvelous. I mean, they're wonderful. I think they are gifts from God. Somebody comes to Christ and you see that expression on their face. There are many things that happen here that are, we would almost call heavenly experiences. And they're close, but they don't match the glory of heaven. So yes, it is so far beyond. I mean, the Apostle Paul said, I can't describe it. It's beyond words for me. And my goodness, if Paul can't describe it, he's a master wordsmith. So yes, it is magnificent and it is indescribable, but we do our best. And in the movie, we do that. We have several people who had an experience, whether they were in a car wreck or a plane crash or drowned, or in some cases even tried to take their own lives. It covers the whole gamut of people's experiences in after death. And therefore, the name of the movie. But it's also scientific in a sense that there are quite a few experts in the movie who are highly educated, trained scientists who have studied this in some cases for decades and have concluded that there is life after death. So it's a magnificent film, really well produced and well executed and provocative. And it's meant to be provocative. It's meant for you to go and answer the question, is there life after death? And to try to steer people to an answer and help them answer the question, because of course there is. Some of us have had the extreme privilege of seeing it, and in some cases people saw hell, and that was not a privilege, it was a shock, and they're never the same after that. One of the gentlemen in the film, Howard Storm, went to hell, and then he came back and is now a pastor in Ohio. So you can see that some of this has changed people remarkably, and it changed all of us. We're not the same. We're not the same since this happened to us. None of us.
And that's the fruit of that experience. And Don, a little bit more about what you saw there. So you were talking about the gates. Were these gates made out of pearls or gold?
It's just like one magnificent pearl, actually.
Okay.
Rather than, you could say the gates were pearly gates, but really pearl gates would be a more apt description. Enormous pearl, but with an entrance in the middle of it. And remarkably, this entrance through the pearl is not very large. And we're told that the entrance of heaven is narrow. It's a narrow gate. To me, it looked like it was just actually big enough for one person to go through. And that's how we go to heaven, one at a time. I mean, there may be a horrible experience where many people are losing life at the same time, but we're going in one at a time because it's a personal decision. It's not something you inherit from your grandmother or because you're good, you're going in. I mean, there's only one way. And Jesus said in that same discourse where he was talking about, I go to prepare a place for you, in John chapter 14, he says, no man comes to the Father except through me. And so because I had a personal relationship with Christ, that day on the bridge, when the truck struck me, I went to heaven because I was ready. I had reservations. And I tell people everywhere I go, we're taking reservations today. I don't want them to leave without having an opportunity to make that decision, because you don't know when your last breath is going to be here on the planet. I was on my way to church at the age of 38 to lead a Bible study. I wasn't in the wrong place. I wasn't doing something wrong, but it happened and I was ready. So you have to be ready. It's urgent. There's an urgency about this. I was ready that day, so there I was at the gate, and it is a magnificent pearl, and there are 11 other of them, 3 on each side of the great city of God, a square, and indicating that people come from all areas of the world into heaven, and the gates of heaven never close, never close. In biblical times, they would close the gates at sunset to keep out people that probably shouldn't be in there because they had ill intentions. In heaven, the gates never close. They're always open, and they're waiting for the people who come to Jesus, and people are coming all the time. So people are entering all the time. And that was my day, January 18th, 1989, and I entered.
But did you go, through the gates, you saw the golden streets, but you didn't really go too far inside?
No, I was actually
Saw the golden streets, the yellow brick road. Told ya.
emerging on the inside when everything stopped. I was looking at there are trees of life, of which we can eat in heaven, because there is no knowledge of good and evil, because there's no evil there. So we eat in heaven for fellowship, not sustenance. And there are
I'm
beautiful
excited
trees.
for that part for sure.
Yes. And I was taking it all in. The glory, the majesty, the colors there I've never seen here, the aromas I've never smelled here, the whole experience. My greeting committee, if you will, were behind me, and I'm going inside. And just as I was about to step in, it all stopped. Suddenly I was enveloped in silence and darkness, and I was very confused. And I tried to make my voice speak to say what is happening. I just got here, and I couldn't even speak. And then out of the silence and the darkness, I heard a single solitary voice, not a chorus of angels or a magnificent voice. It's just one voice. And this voice was behind me, not in front of me like heaven. It was the pastor who came upon the accident and heard God say, pray for the man in the red car. That was me. He crawled in the back of the car, through the door. It was a hatchback car, and he got under the tarp with my dead body, held on to my right shoulder because my right arm is the only thing I did not break in the accident. And he began to pray for me because God told him to. And 90 minutes later, he's singing What a Friend We Have in Jesus, the great old hymn. And suddenly I start singing it with him in the dark under the tarp. And I was back here.
Wow. So how long were you dead for?
90 minutes.
So
Accident report recorded that the accident happened at 11:45 a.m. on the bridge just before noon. At 1:15 in the afternoon, Dick Onerecker, the man who prayed for me, was recorded as hearing me sing with him. He got out of the car very fast. You can imagine with a dead man singing, and ran over to the officials, the EMTs, and said, the dead man is singing, and nobody believed him. They thought it was his imagination. He finally had to threaten to lay down on the bridge in front of the ambulance that was leaving to get them to check on me before they left. They did, and found out that I was a little alive, not very much, but then I was extricated.
It is a long time, 90 minutes.
And I finally wound up in a level 1 trauma center, 75 miles.
You're pretty much brain dead after about 8 minutes if your brain doesn't get oxygen. So this is a super miracle.
Away at 6:15 from a 11:45.
You're supposed to be a vegetable. You medically, you can't be dead for more than 10 minutes without your brain
damage. My head was knocked against the side of the car. This is 1989, so there was not a lot of padding in cars. There were no airbags. There were barely seat belts in those days. So I was impaled on the steering wheel. It went horizontal. I had massive internal injuries, and then I banged my head against the side of the car. I had blood coming out of my ears, eyes, nose, and mouth. but it was dry because my heart stopped beating.
Wow.
So I did not bleed out. I had massive open wounds on my leg.
That's a detail you don't make up, isn't it? Wow.
An enormous, like 8-inch wound on my arm. All the bones in this arm have actually been transplanted from my pelvis, and all the skin on this arm came from my right leg. So I have been completely anatomically rearranged, and miraculously, I mean, they did an amazing job of trying to put me back together because I was told I would never walk again. And if they were able to reattach this arm, it would just hang by my side. But as you can plainly see, this is my arm, and I walked into this room, and when I'm finished, I'm walking out on my own 2 legs.
Wow.
So I believe God is still in the miracle business.
Somebody prayed for you. This wasn't just somebody was driving by and decided to pray for you.
Thousands. You know, they found my ID in my wallet. Because I couldn't speak for myself, I was dead. They called my church because my business card was in the wallet, and told my church that I had been in a terrible accident, but not that I was a fatality, because they were making arrangements to do that and make that announcement in person, of course. So the church starts praying and starts calling every church they know and asking them to pray. And in a very short period of time, thousands of people were praying for me. I'm still meeting people almost 35 years later for the first time who prayed for me on that day. Perhaps tens of thousands, maybe more, because it just spread across the country and around the world. I met a man in California. I live in Houston. A man in California who prayed for me. He was crying when he told me this. And he said, I prayed for you from Taiwan. So it was the exact opposite time of day in Taiwan, 11:45 at night, when he got the word that a pastor had been in a terrible accident on his way to church in Texas. So they're all praying. God is speaking like he did to the pastor who prayed for me, but God is listening, and he wants to hear from his children. And so that day, he heard from a lot of children. I had nothing to do with my survival whatsoever. I didn't really want to live. Not suicidal, but if you've been there, you don't want to be here. But they were praying, and God said, yes. And here we are.
Wow, that is crazy. So you have a car accident. You're driving from a pastor's conference, going back home. You're 38 years of age. I'm 37. So pretty much my age. And then you go straight to heaven. You're seeing your relatives, family. You're going inside of this beautiful city. And right when you're about to explore it, you're getting pulled back into this darkness, and you're hearing this person praying over you. And turns out this person reached out to a dead body that's been there for about 90 minutes, been praying, and you're hearing his prayer, and now you're singing along with him with very little of strength that you have. And the doctors, not the doctors, but the paramedics already pretty much said that you're dead. So he goes up to them and says, hey, this guy is alive, and they don't believe him. So he lies on the road so that they don't leave without running him over, so to force them to actually go and check on you. When they go and check on you, they see that you're alive. And there was also something that he was praying about, actually, is that you will not have these brain internal injuries when he was praying for you, correct?
That's exactly right. He knew the signs, the ear blood, in the eyes. He knew that I had brain damage, and he could see that I had been impaled on the steering wheel. And he knew that the internal injuries, I was missing 4 inches of my left femur, of course, the largest bone in the human body. It was ejected from the car and never found. So I had very obvious external injuries that would have been fatal in almost all.
And he could still walk after some of these femur was ejected. Wow.
Cases. But he knew that the thing that would really take my life permanently would be the internal injuries in my chest and the injuries in my head, the brain damage. So he actually prayed specifically that I would be delivered from those things. And between the accident site and the first hospital where they diagnosed those things and the hospital in Houston, Texas, 75 miles away, I did not have brain damage.
Wow.
And I didn't have internal injury.
That's a miracle from God. But you also
Yeah.
mentioned that another miracle that happened is this particular doctor who was on duty at the time.
Yes.
Could you speak?
Yeah, he was trained in an experimental treatment for bone extending devices. It's actually invented in Siberia by a doctor named Elizarov, and it involves putting halos of stainless steel around your limbs, be it an arm, an ankle, a leg, a femur, and with wires going through you and coming out the other side, and then breaking your leg in another place further up, and then turning screws on these devices 4 times a day to try to grow a bone inside and close the gap where the bone is missing. It's very ingenious. I had 30 open wounds in my leg, and I had 12 in my arm. And if there is a greater pain than this on an ongoing basis, I just can't wrap my brain around it. I didn't really know you could hurt like that. And I worked for a year on my leg and 9 months on my arm. And of course, I've still got them. It worked, but it is extraordinarily difficult to endure. Really,
Mm-hmm.
Every day of your life. I never went to sleep for a whole year. I just passed out from the pain, and no matter how much pain medication they would give me, it didn't seem to affect. I'm sure it did.
Mm-hmm.
I just, if that's the way I felt with the pain medication, I can't imagine what it was like without it. But it was a horrific experience, really. And then 3 years of rehab after that to learn how to walk. I came back from heaven to that, and so I was not in good shape physically, emotionally, and in some cases even spiritually, because I couldn't understand why this happened to me. I couldn't understand what God was trying to do with this experience, and it took me a while to figure that out.
You were pretty depressed actually coming back.
You got it. I certainly was, and people misunderstood it, and it was my fault.
Mm.
They thought I was depressed because of my physical condition, and I agree. It was depressing. Truly, it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I seen heaven and I had it taken away from me. That's what really depressed me.
To pretty much go through hell for 3 years.
Yeah, and that coupled with the fact that I couldn't find anybody who understood what I was going through. The spiritual dimension in heaven, because I wouldn't tell them, and the physical dimension, because no one had ever worn these devices on their limbs at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was breaking new ground because of that doctor who decided to try to save my leg instead of removing what was left of it. Same thing with the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was successful in doing that, but in doing so, I was alone. I had no one to talk to about this. I had no precedent for this. There was no one. So I descended into a really heavy duty depression there in the hospital bed, day after day, week after week, month after month, because I was alone. And I was surrounded by people who loved me, cared about me, tried to help me. And I just wanted them to go away. I didn't want them to see me that way, because it was pathetic. It was a horrible thing to see. People walked in the room and saw it for the first time and passed out. They literally passed out on the floor.
Wow.
Several times, because it was just breathtaking to see this embedded in your leg and embedded in your arm, and they've never seen anything like that. So it was a nightmare experience. And one day I had it. One day it was actually one morning at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was actually shaking my fist, not this one, this one,
Mm-hmm.
and I was saying to God, why can't you send someone here to help me? Can't you send somebody here who understands what I'm going through? If I could just talk to someone who's been here before, I think I can make it. And God spoke to me directly and rebuked me. And he said to me, this is not about you. This is about me. And what I can do through you now, I can never do before the truck hits you. You need to get over your pity party, and you need to turn your pain into a purpose. You need to turn your test into a testimony. And you need to stop shaking your fist at me and reach your hand out to others, and you'll understand how they feel. They need to talk to somebody who gets it, and you'll be that person.
Wow.
Well, I started crying. I wasn't given to crying much. And I cried until the sun came up, about 3.5 hours later. And it was the first day of the rest of my life. I started letting people in.
Mm-hmm.
I started letting them help me. I started letting them care for me. And I reached out to anyone I could find who was hurting and just listened to what was going on in their lives and did my very best to try to help them. That led 15 years later to a book, because I thought I could do more with a book than I could in person. And that turned out to be the opposite. When I wrote the book, then everybody wanted to hear it in prison. And of course, that led to the movie in 2015, 90 Minutes to Heaven. And then it's led to this. So I try to put something in behind me, Pastor, and God put it in front of me. And he does that sometimes. You're trying to get over something. You're trying to get past something. You're trying to just put it behind you. And God puts that in front of you because that's what he wants to use to bless other people. And when we're obedient, that's exactly what will happen. And I'm stunned by it. I never planned to do this. I certainly didn't plan to be an itinerant evangelist. I was a pastor. I wanted to go back and be a pastor, and I did for a while. But then, the book came out and just went ballistic. I mean, just went crazy. And of course, it led to many more books after that by other folks who had similar experiences. And several of them are in this movie after death. So God worked it all out. But I must say, in that hospital room, with those devices embedded in me and being a 38-year-old man who could not do one single solitary thing for himself, we can use our imagination. Until this conversation with you today, God has seen fit to take the pain and turn it into a purpose. And I get it now. I didn't get it then, but then God spoke to me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think this story not only highlights the beauty of heaven and reminds all of us that heaven is a real place, but it also reminds us that prayer is powerful. And when God moves upon us to pray for people, even if it feels like they're gone, whether it's a family members, and we're not just only talking about physically gone, but maybe when they're gone in sin or gone in false religion or gone into some other lifestyle and where they said, we do not want to do anything with Jesus, that we don't give up praying. We don't give up praying. How powerful it was. And then this pastor was praying for you and then rallied, how your church rallied around. And I mean, I even read they had all night prayer meetings, really praying through so that God will grant you life. And I think the other lesson that's, to me, honestly, I feel like this is even more impactful, that just because you have a miracle in one area, it doesn't mean that everything becomes easy in the other area.
No, you can't. Medical people do incredible things, but let's face it, there's some things they cannot fix. I referenced my daughter earlier. She died in December, and she died of cancer, and she fought it valiantly for almost 6 years. And they gave her 1.5 years, and she lived for 6 years. We would have just been delighted if she was still with us, but they can't fix everything. We are actually pretty frail creatures when you think about it. We have wars going on over the planet.
Barry, he's got other videos like this. He's got a Buddhist that went to heaven. So, yeah, I've only just discovered this guy, but I like him, and I'll be playing a lot of his content over the next month or so.
Earthquakes that are killing thousands of people at a time. We have many things here that befall us, and we can't do anything about it. What we can do is be prepared for what is next. I am beaten up, but I'm not beaten. I've got scars from head to toe,
Amen.
and
Me
they'll
too.
always be here, this side of heaven. In heaven they won't, but they are here. And then you know, sometimes in the summer when I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt, I'll have some kid go up to me and say, "What happened to your arm?" Well, that's a witnessing opportunity.
Hey, boss, good to see you,
And I'll
bro.
tell them. So sometimes the scars on the inside of us and the outside of us are what God uses to bless other people because they're going through a long, dark night, like I did, and I want to help them. So we just have to be sensitive. You know, you've gone through a divorce, go help some people who are going through a divorce. You lost your spouse, try to seek out people who are going through mourning over the loss of a spouse. I mean, take what's happened to you, and if you're a follower of Jesus, try to bless somebody else with that.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out why you went through that. It's a simple process, really, but you have to decide to do it. That morning in the hospital bed, I decided that I was knocked down but not out, and that I was going to take whatever was left of me and try to help other people through painful, difficult experiences, not to mention the loss of a loved one. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And I know now why this all happened. I understand it now.
Back at you, boss. Back at you, brother.
When the weather turns cold and every joint in my body aches, I'm not happy about that. And I know that I broke everything that you can break except my right arm. But I know I have something to do today.
Yeah.
I know I have someone to meet today. There is a divine appointment out there somewhere, and maybe several. So I'm going to do that until I can't do it anymore. I know what happens next, but I know we can make a difference on the way.
Yeah.
I try to get people into heaven and help them have a better trip on the way.
I love that. And Don, the movie after death, can you speak a little bit more into it and why people should see it?
And how do you get
Well, I
access
think
to
people
it?
should see it themselves, but I must say, buy a ticket for someone else. You've got a friend, you've got a neighbor, you've got a relative, you've got somebody you know you care about, and they're not ready for heaven, and you know it. Take them to this movie. They'll go to a movie. So take them to the movie because the movie is an examination of is there life after death, and from cover to cover, that's what it talks about. But it's not just talking heads. You know, people are saying, well, I drowned in a kayak accident, or I tried to kill myself. I mean, it's not just those people. There are those people in the movie, and it's very powerful stories. They have the scars to show for what they went through. I always thought it was ironic that Dr. Mary Neal was an orthopedic surgeon when she was drowned in a kayak accident in Chile, and she had to have serious bone reconstruction after her accident, and she's an orthopedic surgeon, so she does too. But she says in heaven, or I was alive here on earth, but I was more alive in heaven. So those are the kinds of stories that are in the movie, and they're interspersed with medical doctors, psychologists, scientists who've studied this for 30 or 40 years and have scientific evidence that life goes on after this body dies. You know, this is just an earth suit that we're wearing here on the planet. It's our container, and we know it dies. Yeah. We've been to too many funerals, all of us. So we have to be ready for what happens next. Yeah. There is the real part of us, the essence of who we are, the way God created us, that He wants with Him forever, and that's heaven, and that's Jesus. Amen. And so, because I had a relationship, that's where I went the moment I died. This movie is about that, and when the lights come on and the credits start rolling, it'll be an opportunity for you to talk to your loved one about being prepared for heaven, because you're about to get in a car and drive somewhere. I got killed in a car, and it can happen at any moment. So it's about preparation. You love them here. Don't you want to love them there? Well, take them to the movie. So I have an opportunity to think about eternity. And if
Good night, Diane.
And Don, could you, in the final closing of this
Good night, Shawnee.
interview, could you speak to those
Guys, I'm out after this as well.
people who are not ready? They don't know the Lord Jesus. As a pastor yourself, and now a person that travels and speaks about Jesus and about this place, could you just take a moment and speak to them and invite them into that relationship with Christ?
You know, I was 16 years old when a pastor stood in a pulpit of a church. My family didn't go to church. If I went, I had to drive myself there. And I got my license, so I knew something was missing. And I went, and the pastor stood in the pulpit that day at the end of his message. And here's what he said. Heaven is real. Heaven is real. And we're taking reservations today.
Amen.
And I had learned just enough to know that I was not ready for heaven. I'd learned just enough to know that Jesus was in heaven and he was building a place for us. And I went forward that day and I gave my heart to Jesus. I surrendered. I said, I know I'm a sinner, and I was. Even at 16, I'd done things I shouldn't have done. I had been disobedient, and I had failed to do things I should have done. And I confessed that I was sorry, but I also made a decision that day to change, to turn from the way I was. So it's not just I'm sorry I got caught, it's turning from that and being a follower of Jesus, making him the champion of your life, the guide of your life, the Lord of your life. And I made that decision. I've never regretted it one moment. And that's why 22 years later on a lonely highway, when a truck ran over me, I was ready for heaven. So you can be ready right where you are right now by inclining your heart, bowing your head, whatever you want to do, in whatever place that you are.
Acknowledge Christ.
Confessing
Christ
to
is
the great
Lord.
God of all creation,
Yep.
that you want to change. You want to turn. You are sorry. You are repentant about the things you've done and the things you should have done that you didn't do. I am sorry. Confess your sins and ask God to forgive you. And he is faithful to do it. Jesus died for this very reason. That's why he died. And that's why he's preparing a place for us right now, because he loves us. He gave his life for us. And by accepting that, you too can have a reservation in heaven. And if you make that decision and say that prayer in your own words, God, I'm sorry. I've offended you. I've sinned. And please forgive me. And not only forgive me,
Okay,
wash
guys,
my
I'm
sins
out.
away, come into my
We've only got a
heart
minute to go.
and
God
be
bless.
the leader of my life for the rest of my life until that day when you call me home. And he will be faithful to do it